So I found Centerpoint probably about a year and a half ago after kind of being in and out of church, me and my wife. We met in church and then kind of got away from church. And then eventually we started bouncing around, and we found Centerpoint because it's like not even half a mile from our house. We did the online thing, the YouTube, a couple times. I was like, let's just go. It's right there, like take that jump. And this is the first church I've been to that I was like, this is home. Like I felt comfortable right away. I felt accepted. I didn't feel judged. Like I've been to those churches where like you step in and people are looking at you like, oh, this guy doesn't belong here. Like that was one of the first things. Like when I walked in, I was like, okay, this is comfortable. Like I can be here. I feel comfortable here. Like I got baptized at this church. I got the pleasures of baptizing my nephews, which is a highlight of my life.
Yeah,
like top 5 moments of my life is being able to do that. My son got baptized here. Like just those things like right there. And then being here, again, I felt like I was family. I felt like I was a member of this church, and them always like asking for volunteers, and I was too scared to do it. I'm like, no, I'm not gonna do that. Like I just wanna stay in the shadows. And then as I was here, just getting to know people, finally it's like, okay, let me step up. I do Wednesday nights with the youth. Nice. Again, I love doing it. Love dealing with them kids. I felt like it was something I've always kind of had to do. And then I bring my nephews into it, so I get to teach my nephews as well. Just everything about this church has been absolutely amazing for me and my wife. My son doesn't complain. Every Sunday morning, it's like, hey, we're going to church. Cool, let's go. Like we haven't had a single Sunday in a year and a half where he's like, I don't want to go. Like we really got to go. It's like, let's go. Yeah. So I'm loving everything about it so far. Like I can't wait to see where this continues to progress, but it's been absolutely awesome for me.
Nice. Before, when you were like at other churches, you said you didn't feel like you were at home. Were they like the kids more like, oh, I don't want to go when you were
Oh yeah,
there?
my son never like whenever we were going, he was like, oh my, like he was just hating life. Like,
so it was like a big switch.
Oh,
then.
for sure.
Yeah.
Like
cool.
this one, he just felt it clicked. Like he wanted to get in there, and again, nervousness obviously taking him to whenever we had to go in there. But like after like the second week, he was like, let's go.
That's
every
cool.
week. No complaints. Like he'll wake right up, like, hey, we gotta go to church. Okay, cool. Gets himself dressed, and he's ready to go before any of us. Nice. So it's really been awesome for that, especially seeing him develop and want to go to church has been awesome. He can't wait for Wednesday so he can go there because he's not old enough yet. So he's like, I want to go. Every week that I'm going, so can I go? I'm like, not yet, buddy. Like you got 2 more years and you're gonna come with me. Like just give it time. But he's already excited about that. So
that's cool.
That's cool that you get to do that with him too, especially on Wednesdays.
Yes.
Like you get to know that he's excited, but you get to see like why he's excited.
Yes.
That's huge.
So going Wednesdays with my nephews also just makes Wednesdays even better because I know they're going to church. So it's like, okay, cool. And I get to see them interact, and I know kind of where they are, what they're learning, and everything like that. So it just makes it even better.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I listen to you talk about the youth and your involvement with the youth, and I think we're kind of on the other end of the age spectrum. And that's one thing about Centerpoint. They talk about diversity in various ways, but there really is diversity. So even though we're a little bit older, we immediately found a lot of people in our age group. In fact, they started a small group a couple of weeks after we started attending for mature people. And we got into that group. The pastor's father, Dale, is one of the leaders of that group, and it's turned into a really tight-knit family type group, and it's been a great experience.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
What made you like want to leave like where you were before?
It wasn't so
an
much.
accident.
Oh,
Yeah, it almost was. We found
weren't
this church.
looking.
Yeah, we were looking for a Christmas Eve service that was
Okay.
on the day before Christmas Eve.
Gotcha.
And Centerpoint had that service, and we found it. We came here, and we just fell in love immediately with the.
Like you said, we walked in and it was home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we haven't been anywhere else since then. It's
That's
every
awesome.
Sunday. We just can't wait to get here. We love the teaching. We've heard all the pastors. We love them all. The music is just fantastic, I think. So it's just home. And I say it is a diverse environment. And the churches say everybody welcome, but I think that's really true. It's everybody's welcome.
That's been a huge thing.
Does the music keep you young?
Yeah.
It does.
He loves it.
I really love it. When I came here, I was a little bit skeptical about contemporary Christian, especially more of the upbeat. And the church where we used to attend, they would have that, but we would stand and I would get tired and sit down. And at Centerpoint, I never even sit down because I just loved it. I love the music.
Yeah, it's very cool.
I've
It's
become a
wonderful.
real fan.
Yes. And the community outreach is so important to me too, with the fourth Sunday,
Yeah.
and that this church actually really does involve the community for real, not just
Say
not
because
just
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
care about the community. They do it in a tangible way, and I love being a part of that. It's really important to me.
Yeah, just the free events they do and things like that that bring the
Yeah.
community in.
Yes.
All that kind of stuff is really big.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, you probably reckon with the children's program. I mean, these events for children, I guess, bring in
Yeah.
hundreds of kids
Oh,
come
yeah.
in.
Yeah.
And
For sure.
it's fantastic.
Yeah, just for the Halloween event, they had 300 students there.
Yeah.
It was
Well,
The
And they were
best.
said 90 of them were brand new, never been there. So things like that, it makes you more excited, gets you
Yeah,
pumped up.
it does.
I just appreciate, to me, everything at Centerpoint seems intentional. They have a plan for everything they do. And everything about, including the cleanliness of the building, I mean, the way the chairs are always set up. Dale likes to do that. It's just, I'm impressed by all of those things because we've been at churches where you walk in and things are kind of out of place and not too clean and that sort of thing. So it may not be important to everybody, but I appreciate everything they do seems to be intentional.
Speaking of the intentionality, one of the things that I often hear, often spoken like almost every month, is that the church should be known for what it's for rather than what it's against.
Exactly.
And I came from an environment where it was heavily known for what it was against. You know, we're against this, we're against that type of church group or denomination, we're against that type of teaching, and that group of people, you know, we're highly against, and it was never really focused on what it's for. Like, what are we doing for the city? Like, what are we doing for our community? What are we doing for the people who are constantly opposing? And that was one of the reasons why I transitioned out of where I was at and coming to Centerpoint. It was just an eye-opener that there are churches out there that are actually intentionally promoting what the church should be for. You know, making the main thing. So that's what kind of has kept me coming up until this point.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that for me personally, coming to Centerpoint was an accident. It wasn't my original intention. Basically, I, really similar to what Leo was saying, had a lot of experiences growing up and specifically in church that were just really toxic and not beneficial at all, to the point where it pushed me away from the church completely. I was pretty open with my friends who I grew up with in church. We'd be talking and just kind of explain that, you know, as your friends, they want to check in with you sometimes, and I could see they'd be really disappointed. Because I made it very clear I didn't believe in God. I was very, I was just over it. I had no intention of returning, and I went to high school with Jared Davis, and during COVID, he put something on, it was like his Instagram, something like a question that he posted, and I answered it, and he and I were talking back and forth, and I've always kind of known him. We've always been maybe acquaintances, but we just had a really good conversation. And so he was like, listen, if you want, we can meet up at the local Chili's and we can talk some more. So we did. We met up a few times and talked, and it became kind of like a vent therapy session for both of us. And he heard my hurt, and he never made me feel judged or bad for it. And then a couple years ago, I still don't really know the whole story, but apparently something happened with the soundboard. I think it was new or it crashed or something. And he called me and he was like, hey man, he was like, every bass player that we have at church right now also works in like sound and production. And so this board that's crashed, we have all hands on deck. He was like, would you be willing to give me just 2 Sundays? if you could come and play for 2 Sundays, he was like, I will actively tell people to not even talk to you. Just because he knew that my relationship with church was so fragile. And so he was like, nobody's gonna say a thing. He was like, but if you'd be willing, like it would be a big help. And it's Jared, he's the sweetest guy. You can't say no. So I was just like, okay, yeah, for sure. And like, I was happy to do it. And so I came and it was true. Nobody, when I walked through the door, was like, hey, before you get on the stage, how's your walk? Or what's your relationship with God? And that definitely made me feel welcome. And then, before I knew it, my 2 Sundays were up and I had gotten to know all of these great people. My relationship with God still never came up once. And I remember when I was packing my stuff and getting ready to go home, I was like, I don't think I'm ready to go yet. And so getting to know these people has been huge. And I think the community aspect of it is what's been big for me, because right now in this moment, I still have days where I'm trying to figure out what my relationship with God is. But I think for the first time, it's okay to admit that, or I feel like it's okay to admit that. Maybe that's faith. I don't know what it is, but the community aspect of it is what's helped me heal and process all of my old hurt, so that now I feel like I kind of have brand new eyes and I can have a relationship with a God that I always wanted to know was there. And for the first time, it feels like a real option. And I don't know, I think that the environment and the family and the friends and everything that we've made from being here it's what makes it worth it to me.
That's awesome.
I feel like it's crazy to like hear. I feel like all of us kind of came to Centerpoint in a way that wasn't like on purpose. But one thing that I've always said is just like that, like obviously everything happens in God's timing, but like for each of us, like we all came in a way that was like, he was like, okay, this is where you need to be right now. And that's definitely like how it was for me too. I mean, I was like church hopping before I came to Centerpoint, and Jake worked at Centerpoint at the time, and he was like, why don't you come? Like, why don't you just try it out? Because I was at a church that I felt like when I walked in, like I was just like, ooh, like it just felt weird. Like it didn't feel right. And I came to Centerpoint and I was like you said, like it was like home. Like it just felt immediately like I was like, okay, and like I was safe. And like I think that obviously like God knew like I was craving that safety for what was about to happen in my life, because I was at the beginning of like really horrible mental health struggles, and like I didn't know that was coming. Sorry, I'm not trying to get emotional, but I found a community that allowed me to not be okay. And I hadn't felt that before, and I met people who honestly like saved my life. Which sounds like a dramatic thing to say, but it's really true. And it was in God's timing, and he knew that I needed that foundation to start with, so that way when this was about to happen, that like I would be okay. And now like I've met people who like I want to be in my wedding, like my best friends, and like people I'm like, this is my family. So I feel like it was just like a massive blessing to like that I was able to hear him and be like, okay, like I will go, like I will try this out and see how it is. And like without it, like I don't know really where I would be. So sorry.
That's really awesome.
One thing I like too is that, especially Pastor Bryant, when he is addressing church or in his messages, he always welcomes those that have questions, the atheist, the agnostic, the people who are still trying to figure things out. I mean, that's big too for me, because again, my environment was very dogmatic, to where like, it was you were afraid to ask certain questions because of the consequences of that. Prior church I was at for 16 years, you know, I was invited to go, and I didn't really know too much about theology or about church culture or anything. I just wanted to love, to live for God. But I slowly, quickly started to realize that this culture or the community, it's not based on what you're talking about. It was based on, are you fulfilling these requirements that our denomination approves of? And as I began to start doing ministry and being a youth leader and outreach and everything, I began to quickly realize that, I have a lot of questions here. This is not right. Like, why are we measuring everyone's salvation based on their performance and their standard keeping and the rules that we have? But you were very skeptical of trying to question, cautious questioning, because that would mean, oh, you're rebellious. You don't really love God, and are you backsliding? So I got to a point where I couldn't no longer hold my questions in and my concerns, and I addressed that to my prior pastor at the time. And when I addressed it, it wasn't received really well. It was received as I was being rebellious. And how could you at this time? You've been here for so long. Don't you know this is what we believe and stand for? But when I realized a lot of things were man-made traditions and just bad theology, I was publicly shunned from the church that I was at, on the pulpit.
Gosh.
With my family, which was unaware of what was going to happen that faithful church service.
Yeah.
And that was the last straw, because when you're unable to be free to question or to ask or to be concerned about your faith, that's a red flag. That's a major red flag.
Yeah.
And I could have been devastated emotionally, you publicly shunned me in front of everybody, even the youth that I was leading, at the time. But throughout that time frame, I was in the shadows studying, learning about what church is really all about, what was really required for salvation. And I left. Whole family left. And I was searching. And I saw Centerpoint online. I saw the pastor. I was like, nah, he's young. I had an old time pastor. I was like, this guy is young, but I was like, let's take a chance at it. And I came to church at a series called Big Church. And he was talking about what the church was all about. I mean, it was on time for me.
Yes.
And from there on, I was like, I think this church knows what the mission really is all about. And my whole family is coming now, and I'm very excited for it. That prior church almost ruined my marriage, because we were so heavily involved, so culturally indoctrinated, that I was driving my car, the marriage, and the gas was on E.
Yeah.
And the signal light, my wife is like, hey. I'm like, don't worry about it. We got to keep serving. We got to keep doing it. And one day, the car just went on the side of the road. And we were at a point where, listen, we can't keep living like this. All about church and not about, our family. And that was a hard thing. But coming to the church helped me to revitalize and restore my marriage and my family. And I give God honor, and thankful that He led me to this place so that things can be better. So yeah.
So cool that you didn't just let that completely shatter you.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, at least for me, I don't know that I would have had that strength.
I think a lot of people would have just given up on religion at that point.
Yeah, for sure.
That's what I did. That's not that same scenario, which of course I'm so sorry that happened.
Yeah.
But that type of environment, you're 100% right, is so belittling and right, and it's that thing that I didn't have the willpower to continue pushing through. I was just tired, and I was like, if this is who I'm supposed to be serving, then I don't like this person or this entity or God or whatever you want to call it. And I was like, I would rather remove myself from that and focus on, I just want to be a good person. I for the longest time was like, when did we lose sight of that? And getting to come here, I mentioned it a minute ago, but it was crazy because I don't know if you ever heard this growing up the way that you did, but when I was in other church environments, I would not be allowed on stage to play if I hadn't confirmed my relationship with God, how I believed, did I believe the same way as I had to do all these things. And so for me to come in, actively not believing in God, not believing in who we're singing to or who we're playing to, I didn't believe any of that.
That's wild. Yeah.
Right. And the fact that that folks on the stage knew that, didn't care. And I think that there are places that would hear that and be like, wow, that is so taboo. Why would they do that? But them doing that is why I'm still here.
Yeah.
That acceptance and that love was like, yeah, this is the thing. I thought I was going crazy. I could have sworn that's what we were supposed to be doing. So yeah, I feel like what you're saying, I really, really recognize, because it's almost that redemptive feeling of like, okay, so I'm not crazy. Okay, so if I'm not crazy and I can figure that part out, then now it just feels like I have so many more opportunities and more things that I can focus on and work on and process, because I feel like I'm in an environment that allows me to do that.
I'm glad we're all here.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, to think that we could be having a conversation like this as people who I don't know, outside of this place, would we have or could we have? I don't know, but I think about stuff like that sometimes, and I think good people being all in one area shouldn't be so hard to find. Mm-hmm. And I hope that as time goes on, other people can find that too.
Yeah.
I knew there was churches out there that were keeping the main thing, because even the Bible talks about that he will have shepherds that are, of his heart, that he would lead the sheep. So it was just finding that place where a good shepherd is. And I was looking for churches, and it was it took me a year to find Centerpoint, but through that year I was looking and still afraid to even submit myself to a church or to a leadership because of what happened.
Yeah, for sure.
But I knew, because scripture says that there will be churches out there and there will be good pastors. So it just was waiting for that time. And thankfully, 5 minutes away from me.
You mentioned the main thing being the main thing a couple of times, and I know that something that bothered us the last few years. A lot of the American evangelical churches seem to have gotten on other agendas and culture, politics, and so forth. And Brian's always done a good job of, for me anyway, keeping that focus. Let the main thing be the main thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, just loving people.
Right.
I think that's definitely why the church I was at before I came to Centerpoint, I was so frustrated, because I came in during a time of a lot of political messiness. Yeah. And that pastor was very open about how he thought we should all feel. And I was like, I respect that you have an opinion, but I really want to be loved no matter what my opinion
Church
is
isn't
too.
the place to be pushing that message.
Yeah.
When you're home and you're private,
Yes.
do your thing.
Yep.
But not at the church.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be pushing your agenda.
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to be God, not you.
Yes, for sure.
It's like you're putting yourself in the front instead of what God really is trying to get a point.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I agree. I think he does a good job. I think all the pastors at Centerpoint do a really great job of that, of welcoming you no matter where you're at.